This is a compilation of our photos from our overland trip from Adelaide to Darwin. You'll notice our family party was reduced by 25% because when you plan to take a trip in 2020 and end up taking it in 2022, some people might have started uni and unfortunately could no longer make it. So that was a bit sad. So it was just the three of us this time. Before starting, I think that given the nature of what we've seen, what we've experienced, it's only appropriate to acknowledge that I am now presenting from the lands of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, to pay my respects to all First Nations peoples and to recognise that sovereignty has never been ceded. So on with the show. So we started by flying from Melbourne to Adelaide on the Friday night and got out to our hotel, and then Saturday morning we decided to start, we had the day in Adelaide, so we started by doing a let's roam scavenger hunt, which is the way we found a great way of seeing a new place. We get to, not all of these were on the scavenger hunt, some of them were on our way there, but you know, get to see a lot of sites, often historical sites around the area. And I won't tell you all about them because then you won't get the, however, this one is, they're supposed to be dinosaur vertebrae. So that's kind of cool. Not really vertebrae, but that's what they're representing. So, you know, lots of fabulous artwork around the area. Top right there, we've actually got a time capsule around women's suffrage. South Australia was one of the first places to get women's suffrage. This is meeting my cousin at the art gallery, and I particularly loved that artwork of a guy who had mapped his runs during lockdown. And this is us at 6 p.m. getting on the Greyhound bus to start our overland trek. Yeah, so off we went, and we started on overnight to Coober Pedy, and we arrived before sunrise. And we were looking at, you know, what are good things to do in Coober Pedy. We hadn't actually made a lot of plans there. And one of the things they said was you should head out to the big winch before to see the sunrise. And given that we were arriving at about 5:15 in the morning, we thought that was a good thing. So that was the first thing we did when we went to Coober Pedy, got to Coober Pedy, was headed out to the big winch. That's the big winch right there. And just, yeah, and this is the sun rising over the opal mining town of Coober Pedy. Yeah, so there's lots of things. Some are the things that people use, and they're telling you about opal mining and how it all works. I think this photo is exactly as the sun is rising. And then other things. So this is a tree made out of warped steel because it burnt, and he decided to, rather than just throw it away, make a tree for his kids to climb. So after that, we headed back into town for brekkie, and we also picked up from the information centre a heritage walk. So these are some of the sites we're doing. You can also see Tulane noodling around in an opal pile looking for opal. And yeah, there's the original cemetery. This is the Catacomb Church, which we arrived sort of waited outside while they were having their church service, and then afterwards they not only let us come into the church, but they also showed us around the manse as well, which is lovely. Headed back to the big winch 360 for their air conditioning, and we also saw their film, which is like a 360-degree panoramic film. And this is why I wanted to come to Coober Pedy. I've been to Coober Pedy before, but I didn't get to stay underground. So this is us staying underground in a dugout area. This is my morning run, and I really wanted to see this turbine, which had been erected since I was last there, and in fact has been decommissioned, but it was my career goal to go and work on that wind turbine because I studied electrical engineering. The ones in the background, though, they are still in operation. And Coober Pedy is also ace for energy efficiency in that, because that's the whole idea of people living underground, is to keep the temperature constant. these are some more things from our heritage walk. We sort of continued it the following day. And this is out the front of the Umuna Opal Museum. And yeah, that's just, yeah, this is the Umuna Opal Museum. And something that I noticed just generally is that all the, so many places are run by Aboriginal people, like, which is very different to last time I was there. This is the first underground church in Coober Pedy, the Church of Peter and Paul, I think. This used to be the old post office. We nearly didn't find this, thank goodness for modern technology. We were out in the middle of nowhere. We couldn't find the actual, because it's no longer a post office, so it was a little bit hard to find. But we checked it up on our phones and we eventually found the right spot. And these are just other sites, so out looking out along those opal fields. This shop, they were lovely. They were called Opalius, and they gave Tulane free, rocks to noodle through, and they were just absolutely lovely. So I wanted to say how great they were. Then we did a tour of the Old Timers mine. So this is an opal seam, and yeah, this was just amazing. Like seeing, so there's the mine. You can also see places where people had lived. So they lived and worked underground. So this mine was initially worked in 1918, and this is in the top right, Minnie Barrington. She was the first woman to have her own mining license. So yeah, just I love looking at how you can see where things have been dug out. The wallpaper there was just all the old newspapers they found when they were digging it out. And we heard, so this is how people used to live. I took too many photos here because I just find this all so fascinating. And what we did here, so many stories in so many different places about how we decided to extend out. So they dug out an extra, carved an extra spot for this new room that we were putting in. And that's when we discovered that we'd actually been, living right next to this opal seam for years and years and years. So that was kind of cool. But yeah. So the way the Greyhound works, at least where we were, from Adelaide to Darwin, it runs it's a 24-hour sort of cycle. So we arrived in Coober Pedy before sunrise and we left Coober Pedy before sunrise. So you've got a few photos there of the sun coming up, and just a few from the road. And then we did arrive in Eldunda, which is the corner of the Lassiter Highway and the Stewart Highway. So it's the gateway to Uluru really for us, around midday. And that pool over there was absolutely freezing cold, which was amazing because it was so boiling hot well, not boiling hot, just hot, because there was no water. It was such a dry heat the whole way. So that's yeah, so we arrived there around midday, and it is literally this this sort of holiday park right in the middle of nowhere. The signs just filled us with confidence. But yeah, they have like some animals there, so we headed out and had a look at the camels and the emus and that sort of thing. And yeah, went out to their platform to watch the sunset, which is that's just the sun setting over the Central Australia. And I think Eldunda, that was another of its claim to fame, was it was the closest spot on the Stewart highway to the centre of Australia. But yeah, so this was this is before, like maybe a couple of hours before you get to Alice Springs. And so we had actually booked on a tour to Uluru. That's not Uluru, that's Mount Connor. Yeah, so Katajuta, which some people might know as the Olgas, is how it used to be known. Now this is the thing, so we had this day tour out from Eldunda, and so rather than stay over at Uluru, if we had our time over, I possibly wouldn't do it that way, just because things felt a little bit rushed. Like we got 40 minutes here at Katajuta, and it was 11 a.m. So it was really, really hot by that stage because there was a lot of driving to get out that far. Yeah, and I found out once we were on that tour that you could have done a multi-day tour where they will let you stay at Yulara along the way, and then you can do things during. And so if I had my time again, that's probably what we would do. I thought that this, like a day tour, was really our only option, given that we were without a car, sort of thing. So anyway, but yeah, that's us finally getting to Uluru. And I mean, again, back to the whole sort of Aboriginal stories, like the guides had to be trained in being able to tell us the stories, like, and they had to be trained by people. So this here is the story is that the water snake resides here, but the other story he told us was about how, see all those, that path, that's the path that has been worn by people on Uluru, climbing the rock for so many years, and apparently they've tainted the water so much that it'll be another, I think, 20 years or 40 years before it's clean again. So yeah, but we just, like, the guys were so knowledgeable, and they told us all the different stories. There were parts of the rock that we were allowed to see, but we weren't allowed to photograph because certain people aren't allowed to see that side. And this is our sunset, you know, looking out onto Uluru. So we got our sunset barbecue. So look, it was an amazing experience. Just would have been lovely to have had a bit more time and a bit more sort of, yeah, control over it. We went into the cultural centre, for example, which I don't have photos of, but could have spent the whole day there, and I think we got maybe half an hour. So yeah, that's something I would do differently if we were going to do it again. So next morning, we just were in Eldunda to head out to Uluru. So we started in Eldunda. Now, I did not mention that our very first hike on the, you know, basically our first hike for the entire trip was Katajuta, and Brendan's shoe fell apart. So that was a bit sad. And this is the repair job that he did to get him at least to Alice Springs, where he could do some more repairs and more permanent repairs. And there I've got, this is just a bit of the holiday reading. So we all ended up reading The Bombing of Darwin, and Brendan and I also read Cyclone Tracy on the bus trip, which was very long. And that was just amazing. You know, like, this is sort of, it's told from the point of view of kids, sort of thing. You know, so it's like, you know, kids teen fiction, but about these historical events, which was amazing. Yeah, so this is our trip to Alice Springs, which is only a couple of hours. This many dry creek beds that we saw, and I don't know if anyone's read Neville Shute, but we all love his work. So yes, now Parchama was a festival that was going on, 10-day festival. I'll talk more about that later, but we saw some movies. So here's Simpsons Gap, which was, yeah, we hired a car in Alice and drove out to lots of all these places. So this is all around, yeah, Simpsons Gap. Just, they told us there were wallabies. I think we were just a little bit too late in the day to see them. We probably got there about 7:45 or something. Yeah, so just stunning, the rock formations, and yeah. Oh yeah, this is the photo I wanted to take. There was a family that was there, and I was just waiting and waiting for them to go so that I could get it, and then they went away, and another family like immediately came and got in the shot. So that was a bit of a shame. So you can see that sort of and you can see this everywhere that we went. You know, the sedimentary rocks sort of gone there, and then there's been a rock forming event, and you know, like sort of, and things have gone onto an angle, which is kind of cool. Can you see Brendan's thongs that he's wearing because he was doing his more permanent repairs to his hiking boots? We did have someone from, you know, a ranger sort of stop us and go, "Oh, so what are you doing?" Like, "Oh, we thought we'd do a bit of the Larapinta Trail, just a little bit." She's like, "Oh, okay." I'm so glad he didn't see Brendan's shoes because I think he was a little bit worried that we were going to try and do the whole 5-day trek. Okay, this is the grave of John Flynn, founder of the Royal Flying Doctors Service, and that used to be one of the Devil's Marbles. So Kalu. I'm going to stop for a tick. So this is the grave of John Flynn, founder of the Royal Flying Doctors Service, and that rock above his grave used to be one of the Devil's Marbles, or Kalu Kalu. And we'd actually just seen a film the night before as part of Parchama, so it was part of the Warwick Thornton retrospective, which was amazing. But this short film had been about the fight to get the rock that had been there brought back to where it belonged, and it's actually been replaced by one that the First Nations people, you know, were willing to be there. So the Royal Flying Doctors Service Museum was one of the things we didn't get to do in Alice Springs because it was Easter, because it was hot. Yeah, we sort of didn't get to see everything that we would have liked to have seen in Alice, but we got to see some amazing things that we never even thought about, and we did get to see the RFDS Museum in Darwin. So that was good. Anyway, so yeah, this is just the sun setting over the beautiful spot we were staying. So Parchama, so this is the main bit of Parchama, the Festival of Light, and most of these photos are Brennan's because mine all were terrible. But it was just this, saying Festival of Light doesn't really do it justice because it was this full-on multi-sensory experience. So there was, you know, amazing sounds, and you'd get one of the things you'd get sort of water on your face, and that Tulane was on that bike, and as you pedal, it would make the back wheel go. This is the bit into that amazing sort of, they would tell the whole story, and yeah, it was just stunning, and you really had to be there. The photos do not do it justice. We headed back out to Simpsons Gap to sort of do some more walks around that area. So that was pretty good fun. We just really wanted to do a lot of walking and that sort of thing. And then we headed out to the desert park. So Parchama in the night had been at this desert park, and then during the day so many different displays, and this is the birds of prey exhibition, and that bird has just used a tool to open the egg. Yeah, survival information on surviving in the bush, and did try and do a bit of heritage tour in, like, self-guided in Alice Springs. Didn't do a great deal. We had been warned that Alice Springs was not the safest place, and I don't know. A lot of people we dealt with were lovely, but yeah, I did feel that maybe those were not unfounded statements. Yeah, so these are just around. This is heading out to the telegraph station. Yeah, and this is the original Alice Spring. It's not really a spring, but they thought it was when they saw it. And it was actually named after the guy who was there to set up the telegraph station. He named it after his wife, I think, to convince her to come there, but she actually never came and stayed there. She was not willing to go out into the middle of nowhere. And it is amazing, like, what, seeing what they've done out in the middle of nowhere and how they've, brought these things. So we did eventually get to do a tour of the telegraph station. So you've got like an engineering marker there. Here's the poles. So they're the original on the left. That's the original poles. And pretty much as soon as they were up, they got eaten by termites and they had to be replaced with these steel ones. But yeah, there was so much to see there, and local primary school students as well are able to spend like a few days there, and they'll actually sort of take on the character of whether it was one of the servants or one of the people who lived there, or so that just would be a fabulous immersive experience. This is the stuff they expected the camels to carry on their backs. It's just, yeah, I love all this really sort of historical stuff, seeing how people lived. On the dry riverbeds, I mean, that was, they were everywhere. Brendan was actually saying, "Oh, I love these. This is it's just a water filling station, but it'll tell you this is how much plastic waste we've managed to save." So yeah, so this is just one of the museums that we did get to see, not the Royal Flying Doctors one, which was next door. Yeah, so that was pretty much the end of our time in Alice. We were sort of flitting back between this and the art gallery sort of thing, and which this museum was sort of part of. But yeah, we saw this movie at the art gallery, Mr. Patton's, and it was about Jeff Barden, who was an art teacher in Papunya, and just his life is amazing. Just seeing that railway line stretching out into nowhere, that's obviously where the GAN goes. And then we were back on the bus. So this was our last overnight trip. So this was on the way to Catherine. So in Catherine, we really wanted to, the main thing we wanted to see was Nitmaluk Gorge, and Phil, our travel manager, who'd done all our accommodation and flights, had also booked us on a tour out there for the next day. But we looked at the Kata caves and we were trying to work out, could we fit it into the same day? And in the end we went, you know what, we'll see if when we arrive we can get out there, which we did. We got, I think we arrived sort of about 11 o'clock, and by the time we picked up the car, turned out we needed a car to get out to these tours. So we picked up a car, and yeah, we were able to get out to the Kata caves. So we called and booked in then. So for basically any tours around Nitmaluk, you need to go through this agency, which is Aboriginal owned Nitmaluk tours, and that's who we did the Kata Kata Caves with as well. So yeah, so this was sort of our, as we arrived, so in the afternoon, and we thought it would be cool, and it wasn't. It was really humid, but it was amazing. So there's our bats. Apparently, we were only a few weeks before before the bats would have been away. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with stalactites and stalagmites, but yeah, through this cave there were all sorts of amazing other formations. Which is all based on, you know, sort of how the limestone flows and, you know, what formations it's doing, which was really kind of cool and just quite magical. And we didn't even really know it was there, sort of. Yeah, it just wasn't something we really thought about. So then the next day we did, yeah, this two gorgeous tour that we had planned, and it was just like the knowledge of the guides was amazing, and they talked a lot about how the gorge, it's this sort of like, you know, lightning crack down the in the ground, and how so at the end of each sort of straight section there'd be, at the opposite end there'd be sort of the matching one, because of the way that the ground is cracked, which was amazing. And this is sort of just some of the things that we saw there. It's kind of, this is one of the things I love about overland travel in particular, is that while we were in Alice Springs, we saw a movie as part of that Warwick Thornton retrospective called Rosalie's Story, which was about the actor from Jeddah, and then, you know, and sort of, you know, what her experience had been being chosen to be in Jeddah. So this was in the 50s, and then what she'd been there, and then we were here in Catherine, in Nitmaluk Gorge, and we actually, you know, got to see Jeddah's Leap, for example, so which is a prime scene in the movie. And yeah, there was just a lot of that where you'd see things at the telegraph station, and then you'd see, you know, in Darwin, you'd see the other end of the telegraph station and that sort of thing. So, but it was just stunning. And apparently it's sort of like at different times of the year, like sort of, you know, in the wet season versus the dry season, the number of gorges that are there changes based on the water level. So I think where we were, you know, there was, I don't know, basically, you know, as the water gets lower, there's kind of more gorges, if that makes sense, because it's split up more. So we had to transfer, we did the two gorges tour, so we actually had to transfer from one barge to another, one boat to another, to get through. So that was kind of cool. So from Catherine, it was again just a few hours really, well, a bit more than it was from Eldunda to Alice, to be honest. But yep, to our very last stop on the Greyhound, which was Darwin. And yeah, so again, this is sort of that thing about the overland. So at the telegraph station, we'd heard about how the termites, you know, ate the telegraph poles, and they were like, oh, and you will have seen them if you've been traveling overland. Well, the termite mounds, and so we were looking for them. So we did, yeah, they are everywhere, certainly as you go north. And then we ended up in this beautifully luxurious hotel in Darwin. I must say, our one in Adelaide was amazing as well. So, yep, I'm looking out onto Darwin. And we spent a few days in Darwin. So yeah, this is just a view from um, our, our hotel balcony. There's quite a lot of street art around, and that's because each year they'll have a street art festival. I just quite like the way that street art reflected on that building. But yeah, so and you can get maps and go around and look at them. We did get to Darwin in time to take a sunset cruise, so that was very nice. Out on Darwin Harbour, and got to watch sun go down, and it was just a lovely sort of luxurious way to finish off beautiful seafood, to finish off our backpacking part of our journey. So that was good. And you also got to sort of hear a bit of the stories about about Darwin as well while we were doing that, which I always enjoy. Okay, so we decided to do another of those Let's Roam scavenger hunts. So this one was very, that's the tree of knowledge there. But this one was quite focused on World War II history, actually. So we got to, do that again. It's a good way of seeing a place. It was so hot. Everything about this trip was so hot. But anyway, and this is the starting point of the so this is where the telegraph line started. Old World War II oil storage tunnels. So they were quite amazing, and they were not open last time I was there. I last went. The last time I did Central Australia trip, I was in year 11, so a very long time ago. But yeah, this again had some recordings of people sort of talking about what the time was. This lovely sort of pictorial timeline of the history of Darwin. Continuing on our little scav hunt, and then we finished the scav hunt, and this was Michelle's recommendation was Hanuman for lunch, and then the Flying Doctor Museum out there. I love these. The first aid kit. That's a big first aid kit. Just amazing. Like the way someone was able to see that there was such a need, and what a difference it's made in people's lives. I've discovered that my son loves taking photos of spiders. Basically all his photos were of spiders. Again, this was sunset from our balcony. So Litchfield, that was the excursion. So my plan, there's a massive termite mound. My plan had been to try and do a day trip out to Kakadu, but Phil did suggest that maybe Litchfield might be better because it's closer, and we probably would have had enough of buses by then. And I think it was a very good recommendation. So while we would like to do Kakadu, we might save that for another year. Different types of termites have different types of mounds, and those ones I think face north-south sort of thing. I think this might have been the water hole. Oh no, this was actually the first of the waterfalls that we got to swim in, which is very exciting. Tulane was swimming against the current and going, "It's nature's treadmill." That's the lower falls, so we were in the upper falls bit, and we also got to swim in this waterfall, although we don't have any photos of that. And then those ones we did not swim in because there were crocodiles, saltwater crocodiles. So we can swim with freshwater crocodiles, but we can't swim with saltwater crocodiles because they will eat us. Yeah, did this lovely rainforest walk nearby, and then we headed out onto the Adelaide River to see the jumping crocodiles. So these are salties as well. And can you see that croc there? So they were amazing. Yeah, I mean, obviously. Have a look at their tails. I think I've got a photo back there. They just looked like, when you saw just their tail, it really looked like a dragon's tail to me. Anyway. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, there you go. Another photo of a spider. That was also Telane's. Yeah, some of those street murals. So the next day we popped on a hop on hop off bus tour. This was the museum, the gallery. So there was an exhibition about Cyclone Tracy. Very sort of emotional, actually. There's Sweetheart the crocodile. So we'd actually seen Sweetheart's where Sweetheart used to hang out on the trip to Litchfield the day before. Maritime Museum, and then yep, there. Okay, and then yeah, so that these are just photos we took from the hop on hop off bus tour. So we didn't actually stop at these places. Yeah, but it was again a good way to see Darwin. We did head out to the parrot markets as well. That was good fun. And then yeah, some of these murals. And I think this is the last photo. I obviously haven't listened to the song properly, but so this is commemorating the symbolic returning of the land to the Aboriginal people. So that's Gough Whitlam pouring the sand into his hand, and it's the story of the protests that caused this sort of this to happen. This sort of the recognition of Aboriginal rights to the lands, and that was what Paul Kelly's song "From Little Things Big Things Grow" was all about. So yep, that's the last photo I've got on this trip, and from there we flew back to Melbourne from Darwin the following day.